Hi, I'm Robbie Bobby. This video is the 9th in a series that examines the laundry list, otherwise known as the 14 traits of an adult child. The topic is trait 9, which reads, "We confuse love and pity and tend to love people we can pity and rescue." As I pointed out in prior videos, ACAs can have a difficult time sorting out feelings. Trait 10, for example, tells us that we have stuffed our feelings from our traumatic childhoods and have lost the ability to feel or express our feelings. So it's no surprise that we would confuse love and pity. To start with, many adult children experienced a complete absence of love or even attention in childhood. Some were physically abused as well, by people who were supposed to love them. Without a proper model of love in our formative years, how are we supposed to know what love is? If love was intermittently given, the child may have been too shut down and emotionally frozen to notice. In a recent STEP meeting I attended, a question from the workbook asked if we knew what love felt like. Most members of the group struggled to answer that question. So keep in mind, this is part of the foundation of trait 9. Other traits, by the way, come into play as well. Trait 5, for example, states, "We live life from the viewpoint of victims and are attracted by that weakness in our love and friendship relationships." Attracted by weakness sounds like pity. Trait 6 says that we have an overdeveloped sense of responsibility, and it is easier for us to be concerned with others rather than ourselves. If we pity someone, it sets the stage to take responsibility for them. You could say, rescue them. The bottom line is that none of the traits operate on their own. We may study them individually, but they function together. The next thing worth pointing out is the connection to the Karpman drama triangle, which is referenced in the traits workbook. However, there's little explanation, so it's helpful to study it on your own, because the triangle helps you to understand many of the traits, especially trait 9. I put out a video explaining the drama triangle that you might want to check out. The basics are as follows. The triangle has 3 positions: victim, rescuer, and persecutor. However, these positions are not for actual victims, rescuers, and persecutors, but rather people who play the role of victim, rescuer, and persecutor. You can think of it as a dysfunctional form of role-playing, with each player validating the other's role. This is called a transaction. Drama occurs, according to Karpman, when one player suddenly changes his role or position on the triangle, which forces the other to do the same. This is drama. It can also be considered excitement, which brings in yet another trait, trait 8. We became addicted to excitement. Trait 9 states that we have a tendency to love people who we can pity and rescue. However, the key words are in quotations, which imply they're not what they seem. If you interpret this trait literally, you won't understand its true meaning. From the viewpoint of the drama triangle, we have a tendency to take on the role of rescuer in order to meet our own dysfunctional and unconscious needs, which is part of our childhood conditioning. We do this by accepting invitations from people who are playing the victim role. The pity we feel for the victim, combined with our actions to rescue them, are confused with love. Another perspective is because we feel unlovable and unworthy of love, we believe that if we rescue the other person, they will love us in return and therefore not abandon us. Trait 12 states that we are terrified of abandonment. This fear of abandonment is the foundation of all the traits. I believe it's also the energy that drives the drama triangle. The connection between the traits and the triangle can be better understood by reading the book Games People Play by Eric Berne, published in 1964. Eric Berne invented the concept of transactional analysis, which included three distinct ego types: adult, child, and parent. These correspond to what ACA describes as the inner adult, inner child, and critical inner parent. I see this as the precursor to the entire ACA program. Stephen Karpman, by the way, was a student of Eric Berne and used his work as the foundation for the drama triangle. Studying Berne and Karpman is not a requirement for recovery, but doing so will help you understand the ACA program better. It's why they're both mentioned in ACA's Traits Workbook. What I've described so far is my opinion. It doesn't make it a fact. Whichever way you interpret the trait, it's important to see how it operates inside of yourself. This takes you from the theory of it to the reality of it. However, the traits aren't always easy to detect because they operate out of our unconscious mind, attached to our repressed childhood trauma. For me, understanding something intellectually often opens the door to seeing and feeling it with more clarity. I heard someone say that discovery is not recovery, and I agree, but it's often the first step. I've come up with different ways to look at the traits once I understand their meaning, by asking myself certain questions. For example, how does this trait show up in my life? What are the triggers? Am I powerless? How am I powerless? How has this trait made my life unmanageable? Connection to the other traits. We got into a few of these in this video. And what effect does self-love have on this trait? And self-love is the solution, not only for trait 9, but for the rest of the traits as well. And that wraps up this video, which was meant to be food for thought. If you got something out of it, please click like and subscribe and forward to a fellow traveler. I'm Robbie Bobby. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep coming back.